Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jeff Flynn and I'm a mobile home park investor. I currently have 11 mobile home parks in my name and I've got one more that is actually under contract. Out of those 12 parks, all 12 of them were found off market, which means not one of them was ever on LoopNet or Crexy or anything like that, Zillow, Redfin, whatever. And out of the 12, 10 of them were found from me going directly to the property owner and negotiating a deal with them without a broker or a wholesaler involved. So in this video, I want to explain exactly the process of how I do that and how I quickly analyze off-market deals to figure out if it's something I want to pursue or not. Okay, so on the screen right here, this is typically what I'm looking at when I'm trying to find deals off-market. Now, on the left side of the screen, I just have my list of my properties. On the right side is an app that shows me property records. So in this case, I use LandGlide. Super easy to use, super cheap. It's like 10 bucks a month. And I've never seen it not have the owner's name. Now, LandGlide doesn't give you their phone number or anything or any contact info other than a mailing address, but it does at least give you the property owner's name, which we'll go into later about how I find, how do I call them? But in this case, on the left, what you see is actually, this is an app I've coded for myself, just completely from scratch, which is just my personal way of how I keep everything organized. But if you're just getting started and you just have a spreadsheet of the properties you want, I would suggest just go on Google Maps, something real simple like that. Find the properties you want, search mobile home park. That'll give you a certain amount in a given area. Keep in mind, I'd say maybe a fifth of the properties out there that are mobile home parks are actually on Google Maps. So you'll be able to just look over an area visually and label them. But what I do here is I'll take one like this, for example, and I will search the coordinates on LandGlide. Or if you have an address, you can use that. I typically find that coordinates are way better. And then I've got the owner's info, right? Simple as that. So this is the guy's name. And then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to want to find a way to contact them. So usually you can find a mailing address and you can send a letter. That's pretty slow, but it's honestly pretty effective. A lot of these I don't know if this guy's old or not, but a lot of the owners of mobile home parks are pretty old, and a letter actually goes a pretty long way. So the next thing I would do is I would go to what's called Fast People Search. Now, on my app, I just have it designed right where it needs to be. But this is a totally free website. One of my friends who's a police officer told me about this. This is what he used to find people. But you just search the person's name, and then you want to put the city, state, or zip that you think they're in. Now, in this case, I'm just going to put in Athens, Alabama, search it up. And there are different things you can do. You can look at things like PropStream or Reonomy. I think they're just typically too expensive. What I found, a lot of times I have to go and manually research the properties anyway, because a lot of these mobile home parks aren't really researched well by either of those places. But then you get a list here of all the stuff you need. You got their phone number, their email, their mailing address, you name it. And what you'll find, most of these numbers don't work, right? Nobody really has 6 phone numbers, but you just call one by one. And eventually, once it's all said and done, you get the person on the phone. Now, once you've got the person on the phone, what I typically like to do is just introduce myself, tell them I'm a fellow mobile home park owner, which I am. And if you're not, you could, you obviously wouldn't lie and say that, but you just introduce them, tell them, hey, I know you're not looking to sell right now. It's not listed, but I just wanted to see if you'd be willing to look at an offer, right? And from there, I usually just get a couple of pieces of information. If they say, yeah, I would look at something. I want to know how many lots are there, how many lots are currently occupied, how many of those lots that are occupied are homes that the park owns, how many of those occupied lots are homes that the tenants own, what is their lot rent? And then I ask things like, your utilities, is it city water, city sewer? Is it septic? If it's septic, is there one tank per home? Is there one tank for every 2 homes? That sort of stuff. But basically what I'm going to show you here now, you're going to think this is simple and me making this too short for a video, but I promise you this is not. When you're calling an off-market person like this, you're typically not going to get financials. If somebody owns a park kind of rural or they're a mom and pop operation, they don't have those just ready to go. They haven't had a realtor walk them through everything they need to get ready to sell. And so you're probably not going to get a really clean set of books. This is typically what I do. So if I was calling this park right here, which this park is one of mine. So if you want to practice and call me and see if I'd sell it, sure, I would actually sell it. So give me a call. But first thing I would ask, how many lots? They'd say, okay, it's 36. All right. How many lots are occupied? 34. All right, perfect. What is the lot rent? In this case, they would say $375. So 34 times 375 tells me the gross each month, assuming that they're doing well on their collections. Now, Remember, at this point, this is off market. I'm not telling you that this is how we would go and buy it, but this is how I'm going to get a price in mind. Next thing they would ask is, I would look at this and I would ask the questions about the utilities, septic, blah, blah, blah. Now, what that tells me as an operator and somebody who owns a good number of these, about a dozen, I know what they typically spend. And so I'm not asking for their books at this point. I'm going to get an idea of what they are, and I'll make an educated guess anywhere from 30% to 40% of expense ratios based on what they're telling me. So in this case, let's say this sounds like a pretty lean operation because for whatever reason, I think that's the case. I would say there's a 30% expense ratio. So 70% of what they collect, they keep. Now, that's not accounting for vacancy, but we're just going to go with this number for now. So that tells me that's my monthly expected NOI, which is pretty optimistic, times 12. So that tells me this property probably does somewhere around $100,000 a year in NOI before you factor in a mortgage payment or anything like that. So now what I would figure out, in my case, right, if you want to just figure out what this is worth, you would just apply a cap rate. So if you wanted to say this is an 8 cap or you're willing to pay an 8% cap rate, it's worth $1.3 million. Now, if we wanted to go back for a second, let me see here. If you're willing to pay a 9% cap rate, meaning you're willing to pay a little bit less, it'd be 1.9. And if you're willing to pay divided by a 7% cap rate, which would be pretty low in this case, you'd be willing to pay that. So that kind of just showed you those really simple calculations. That kind of tells me where I expect that this property is currently worth. Now, again, this is not, hey, I'm closing today, this is what I'm paying. Like, I haven't done any due diligence, but understand that when you're doing off-market deals, you need to make the first offer. Like, you need to tell them, hey, I would be willing to pay you this. Is that something that would work for you? And you'll find out real quickly. This person might say, yeah, I would take, maybe you start with the low one. You say, I'd take 1.1. And maybe they say, yeah, that sounds great. Let's talk. Or you tell them I want 1.5 and they say, oh no, there's no way I'm selling this park for any less than $5 million. You don't understand. There's no expenses. I just rent the dirt. All sorts of crazy boomer shenanigans that they will yell at you. And like, it's not true, right? Okay, you know what this is worth. You haven't wasted a lot of time. As you can just see, I've probably done that in about 2-3 minutes tops. And at that point, I just figure out, okay, is this worth pursuing and diving deeper or not? If it's not, you just say, great, scratch them off your list and keep going. That is really the process. That is how simple it is. It's just about repetition. Repetition. The more calls you make, the more people you get on the phone, the more conversations you have, the more chances you're going to have to make something like this work. All right, so that's it in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance and details to how you actually finagle getting someone to give you the right info and using your gut to figure out what you think it might be worth and what they might take based on what they talked about. But I just wanted to use this video to kind of explain my process in a nutshell. It's not super complicated. Everything you just saw there was publicly available information. It's just me getting after it and doing it that actually drives the results. So I would tell anybody, and I have told anybody I've met that's trying to get into the mobile home park investing space, that if you're not going to do the work to find off-market deals, pick another asset. Nothing good in the mobile home park space ever makes it to a listing. They just don't. By the time they're there, people like me have called them a million times and realized, hey, they're crazy. They're never going to get that price. And some broker is willing to list it for them and the chance they might get a fee. So yeah, they might sell. You might be able to make a tiny bit of cash flow, but it's nothing like the deals that you'll see off market. I've bought deals where I'm paying a third of what it ends up being worth in 12 to 18 months, right? And that is all due to the work and time put into finding it before it ever gets to the market. If you like this video, just leave me a like and comment on what you liked about it or what you want me to cover in future videos. That's how I came up with the idea for this video, because someone told me they would like to learn more about it. And if you haven't yet, just go ahead and subscribe so you stay in touch with any videos I put out in the future. Thank you. Bye.